But Iron Maiden are cowards. They won't do that.
They won't. They haven't got the balls to go out and play an unedited, not the single version, the full 9-minute Angel and the Gambler in their biggest ever UK headline show. Just like we got you on the stadium, now you're going to have to listen to it. All 10
There's only
minutes.
so much room at the bar. You can't all 50,000 of you get there.
Hello and welcome to Maiden Voyages, a podcast devoted to exploring the peerless discography of the world's greatest heavy metal band, Iron Maiden. So, as you know by now, across this series, we've been journeying through the band's entire discography, discussing, analysing, dissecting, celebrating, and the odd bit of commiserating every single Iron Maiden record. So, this episode, we find ourselves all the way back at the start in 1978/9 to explore Iron Maiden's pioneering first EP, or is it a demo, the Soundhouse Tapes, plus bonus news.
Yeah, it feels like, in retrospect, we kind of skipped the first step of the discography.
Yeah, well,
This is technically studio discography. Listeners at home, you can't see me. I'm doing air quotes when I say studio discography.
Indeed, yeah. We covered it, but we feel like, it's the 50th anniversary. It perhaps maybe warranted a bit more time than we gave it, because in that first episode, going right back to the start, A, we didn't really know what we were doing.
There was so much history.
And B, we were trying to cram in five really pivotal years.
Yeah, just
into about
Blevin
an hour and a
banging
half.
on forever.
Yeah. And also me needlessly explaining who everyone was all the time.
Well, not needlessly. I think
I kept saying, and Steve Harris, the bassist of Iron Maiden. As if anyone who's bothering to listen to this
Dave
podcast.
Murray, guitarist
of Iron Maiden. Did I tell you this podcast is about Iron Maiden?
Yeah, okay, fair point.
But who are we, Sam? Well, you're Sam, obviously.
Well, you really ruined
damn
that
it.
surprise. Just introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Blev, an historian of sorts, and I am an Iron Maiden sage.
Sage.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I thought of that on the walk over here.
Nice. I'm Sam. I'm a writer of sorts, and I am an Iron Maiden magician.
Magician. Nice.
But I mean, like a children's party magician. I'm pulling an Eddie figurine out of a hat.
I hate to say this to you, Sam. I think you've used that exact line before.
Oh, God. Okay. All right. Wow. Wow. We've done so many episodes that I'm just repeating my jokes.
I'm just preempting the pedant's corners from the listeners, who will probably point that out.
You've probably used Sage before.
No, I think I said prophet or something.
Yeah,
but if I didn't say prophet, I'm keeping that on the back burner.
All right. Let me go again then.
Okay, go
I'm
on.
Sam.
Take
I'm
two.
a writer of sorts, and I am an Iron Maiden time or past.
Nice. I see what he's done there, folks. Yeah.
Take that.
Lovely little bit of play on words there. So we are going to talk about the Soundhouse Tapes, but it's a podcast extravaganza, isn't it, Sam? Because we're going to do news. That's it. News and the Soundhouse Tapes.
News and a brief return of Pedant's Corner, because a lot of people have been correcting us about Dance of Death or offering us factoids.
It's the feature that won't die.
As long as there's people on the internet who want to make sure we know we're wrong, it won't die.
And some good Pedant's Corners as well.
Yeah, no.
Some strong stuff from the listeners, actually.
Yeah, I sound very judgmental of the people correcting us, but we very much welcome it.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to know what we didn't know.
We love being reminded of our failings, don't we?
Yeah.
It's great.
It's the only way we'll learn.
So should we do news first, and then we'll sort of work our way back to the Soundhouse Tapes?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So we are recording on the 13th of June. Whilst
2025.
2025, yeah. Whilst all the cool kids, or at least kids, are at Download Festival. We're not.
Really glad I'm not, to be honest, but
Yeah, I'm too tired. And also, the lineup is not my jam this year.
not for me.
No.
Not even that day for Weezer, but
There's some stuff.
it's pretty much just Weezer, isn't it?
Opeth are on that day as well.
Yeah, that's
And Svalbard.
yeah, but Opeth clashing with Svalbard. What?
Yeah, I know. It'd be
There's probably about 5 bands I really want to see on that day, and 2 of them clash, and you
Yeah.
think, yeah, it's probably not for me this year.
Anyway, so we're recording on the first day of Download, and that means when this goes live on Thursday, we will be just over a week away from seeing Iron Maiden on the Run For Your Lives tour at London Stadium. So this is a little bit of a hype check. Obviously, the tour is in full swing. There's going to be some spoilers here for the set list. So if you don't want to be spoiled, what I'll do is in the show notes, I'll say the time codes of what you should avoid so that you can avoid it.
Nice.
But we're going to talk about the set list a little bit because Iron Maiden themselves have plastered it.
I was going to say, if you are a Maiden fan and on social media and you have managed to avoid spoilers for the set
That's impressive.
It's seriously impressive because, I mean, I just didn't even... I knew I was going to crumble as soon as it was out there.
Yeah,
I didn't.
As soon as they started posting it, I was like, yeah, I'm going to read all these.
Yeah, like you, I've deliberately tried to avoid video footage as much as I can. Although
I've seen one photo from the stage set, and I mean, it felt like a big spoiler, but whatever.
Yeah.
I've not seen anything in motion. It's fine.
Yeah, it's all right. So there's been a lot of articles circulating about the Run For Your Lives tour, which seems like a slightly fabricated story of like controversy about Maiden set list. Fans. I mean, they are mostly man fans.
Yeah.
But fans take to internet to complain about Maiden set list for the Run For Your Lives tour. I don't even... There's people saying... Okay, there's a few strands to this.
Okay.
The only strand I can get behind, and this is where I think my expectations were a bit... By the way, I am not complaining about the set list.
Yeah, very happy with the set list.
I'm very
lots of
happy.
Cool, interesting choices and lots of bangers.
But where my expectations were a bit out of kilter was the branding of the tour as 80 to 92. Okay. And Maiden have done the Early Days tour in 2005, covered the first 4 albums. Yep. Did Somewhere Back in Time tour, covered the mid-Power Slave period, did Maiden in England, covered the late 80s. So the assumption that I think other people made was, oh, well, this means now it's gone up to 92. They're going to go in a bit deeper on No Prayer for the Dying, Fear for the Dark. And by a bit deeper, I thought they might play Tail Gunner or Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter as well as Fear of the Dark, or maybe Be Quick. Like, I was thinking... I was expecting Be Quick or Be Dead. 3 songs maybe from those 2 albums was kind of my expectation.
Yeah, I don't think that was an unreasonable expectation.
No.
I was expecting at least 1 song from No Prayer for the Dying.
Yeah.
As opposed to 0.
Yeah.
Because that's the only album not being represented.
It is, yeah. And then 1 song off the song they were always going to play Fear of the Dark. Yeah. Right? So
it's a real shame they're not playing Be Quick or Be Dead. The only other song they might have played off that album.
Yeah. Well, in recent years, they have played Afraid to Shoot Strangers. Weirdly, they played that on the Maiden England tour.
Yeah.
Which was meant to be celebrating the Seven Sun period. We got Afraid to Shoot Strangers, which I was very happy about.
Yeah.
And then this time we're just getting Fear of the Dark. So people are moaning about that.
I think it is a valid comment, but not worth a moan, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, exactly. That's my fault.
Because there's so much good stuff in that set list. It's kind of like, well, if that's the trade-off you have to take.
The genuine comments I've seen online from people saying things like, oh, they could have put, like, this would be such a cool set list if they played Mother Russia. And you're like...
I think that would be the opposite.
Yeah, I think that was a song that they never...
really drag the set
They
down.
never played it live, even on the tour, right?
Yeah.
And so you're just going... okay, so some people are idiots, right? Fine. We can park that.
Yeah.
Criticism 2.
Yeah.
And we addressed this in our news episode at the time.
Ooh.
People said...
Question.
Bruce said, oh, we'll play things we've never played before. Now, I remember at the time I said, I don't think that's what he said.
Yeah.
I think what he actually said was, this tour, we're going to be doing things we've never done before. People interpreted that, maybe understandably, as
playing
songs that have never been played live before. He didn't to be fair to the guy, he didn't actually say that. And again, without spoilers, but seeing the stage set, it's like, yeah, they are doing things they've never done before.
Yeah.
So that criticism isn't really valid.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one because that is wholly driven by fans getting the wrong end of the stick or just overhyping themselves and then being disappointed when the thing they made up in their head doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. So fans going, oh my God, that means they're going to play Only the Good Die Young or Mother Russia, apparently.
They're going to play the Assassin.
They're going to play the Assassin, although they have played that live before. They actually played it. They played it a lot in the No Prayer for the Tortoise, yeah.
Jesus.
I mean, it would be fun if they played the Assassin.
Would it?
You'd be there going, better watch out. Hands in the air, beer everywhere. 'Cause I'm the assassin.
Yeah, actually, to be fair, if they just played a set of all the songs that I think are slightly terrible,
Yeah.
I would actually wholly get behind that.
I mean, for me, it's like a 1-2, just like track 1, the assassin, into like Holy Smoke. I would,
It's a holy spot. And then for no reason, the Angel and the Gambler.
yeah.
That's the set I want. But Iron Maiden are cowards. They won't do
Yeah, they won't. They haven't got the balls to go out and play an unedited, not the single version,
No.
the full 9-minute Angel and the Gambler in their biggest ever UK headline show. Just like, we got you on the stadium, now you're going to have to listen to it. All 10
You
minutes
are
of
a
it.
captive audience. There's only so much room at the bar. You can't all 50,000 of you get that.
Yeah, we got Steve Harris just playing a very long game.
Yeah.
with the virtual.
It was actually all meant to be about punishing his audience at some point.
The other criticism, this is the last of my criticisms. Okay. Again, not mine. I've collated
The
online.
Iron Maiden diaspora.
Yeah, just like hoovering up the whingers. People saying, "Oh, this is just a rehash of the Somewhere Back in Time tour." Okay, which it is. It is not. But actually, what it is, and for me, this is great. This is like a best of the early days Somewhere Back in Time and Maiden England.
Yeah, I think that makes
it's a
sense.
best of the 3 retrospective tours, right? That's what it is, with the addition of Killers. That is the song that wasn't played on any of those 3 tours.
I mean, this is basically just a best of everything up till 92, right?
Yeah, but with some kind of cool stuff chucked in there as well.
Yeah. Like an interesting take on a best of, but it's still, I mean, it's not identical to any of the retrospective tours they've done already. I always forget what the deal was with the Somewhere Back in Time tour, because I didn't see them on that tour, but for something that was called Somewhere Back in Time, it had Wasted Years
and Heaven Can Wait.
So 2 songs.
Yeah, but it was
the
actually
titular album.
Yeah,
and then all the imagery was like Cyber Eddie in the Power Slave.
Well,
background.
it was kind of like Live After Deathy.
Yeah, it's very confusing branding.
Yeah,
like Maiden are pretty spot on with their branding.
It was basically like the mid-80s, right? It was like the first tour was like the first 3 years of the band, and Somewhere Back in Time was This Is Us kind of, the mid-80s era. Yeah. Basically. So they did play the Clairvoyant.
Okay.
But they didn't go in as deep on Seven Sons they did in
Maiden England tour.
So for me,
that was a good tour.
And also for people going, it's just such a predictable set list, they're opening with Murders in the Rue Morgue, for God's sake.
That's not predictable.
I never thought they'd play that song live ever again. They're playing
very
Killers.
happy about
That hasn't been played live since 1998.
Also very happy about that.
And then you've got The Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner and
Less
the
happy
Seventh Son of a Seventh Son in the same set.
I'm happy about that.
Like the fact it's like they're doing both of them and Phantom of the Opera. Like, come
Rhyme
on.
of the Ancient Mariner will be a good point for me to go to the bar during the long bass solo bit.
Come on, Sam.
It's going to be great.
When it kicks in.
The bit of it I really enjoy is just Bruce going, water everywhere. That bit cracks me up. But then the rest of it is like,
The bit I enjoy is every single second.
I think there is a possibility that it's just got to a point where realistically I probably don't mind the song, but I'm just constantly doubling down on not liking it.
It's too late to go back now, Sam.
It's no Alexander the Great. That's all I'm saying.
No. So I think from our point of view, we're very
cool
excited,
set list,
aren't we?
Yeah.
Very excited.
That's going to be a very fun gig. It's on my birthday. So, Pint said.
Is it worth maybe commenting about the mobile phones thing as well, which is kind of like an interesting development? Sort of very shortly before the Budapest gig, Maiden they haven't gone full Ghost, and which in a way I quite like the full Ghost experience of locking your phones away in a pouch. But
I think the way Maiden have done it is quite good. I think I agree with Rod's message. Like, don't don't just spend the entire gig behind your phone and don't ruin it for everyone else. The thing is, like, it's so unenforceable and it's hard to tell how much that message will have spread because
I believe before the Budapest gig, they were on the screens. There were messages displaying that. Yeah.
Okay. That's
so it wasn't, that was one of the things that did pop up on my feed where before the gig, it was quite prominently displayed on the screens, which was this, the message of like, we're not saying basically
take a couple of photos, don't film entire songs or the entire gig. I hate the people who are just stood there filming a song. It's like, but this is a waste of everyone's money.
When I went to go see Michael Schenker do that UFO show in Bristol recently, great, and Maiden adjacent because Doctor.
Sure.
There's a guy.
You don't have to justify the tangent.
No,
the amount of times I've mentioned Sabotage, who I'm seeing on Monday, it's very exciting.
Well, hey, but you found, if you go to our Instagram page, you found the
actually, I did find a link.
Maiden link you've been looking for the last 2 years. So it's finally there. But there was a guy in front of me. I was like second from the barrier, right? There's a guy on the barrier who had his phone. Okay, he's like no offense, Michael Schenker fans, like everyone at the Michael Schenker gig was probably over 50, right?
Yeah,
I was by far the youngest person there, I think. But
and Levin's not young.
No, that's the sad thing, folks. I'm a grey-haired man, right? And I felt like a whippersnapper at Michael Schenker, watching a 72-year-old guitarist with a bunch of 60-year-old men. But there's a guy on his phone who filmed, no word of the light on the barrier, the entire concert.
Yeah.
He'd also, as I noticed, because I stood right behind him, had bought a battery pack with a cable. What? So because I thought, this is going to rinse his battery in a second. He's literally filming the whole thing. And then I was like, oh, no, he's actually bought a battery pack and a cable to the concert so you can film the whole thing. And I'm just thinking, I'm not being funny, this is Michael Schenker in 2025. How badly does the internet want an entirely fan-filmed recording of Michael Schenker from Bristol in 2025, right?
Yeah, it's so bizarre. And also, because I won't be able to edit it out if the mic's picked it up, there are a lot of seagulls outside having a wild Friday night.
It's very Rime of the Ancient Mountain, isn't it, really, Sam?
It might have added some nautical ambience. But yeah,
maybe an albatross will come down there.
Yeah, there's something really weird about filming entire gigs in this day and age when, firstly, like, everything is available.
Yeah.
So most gigs you go to, not most gigs, but plenty of gigs you go to, especially at least one date on the tour, will have some pro shot footage from it. So what's the point in getting your sort of jangly, shaky hand camera footage and posting up entire songs? And then it's not like people, because there's such an abundance of all the footage, it's not like people are clamoring for bootleg footage like they might have been in the 90s, where I could kind of see, well, in fact, like in the early noughties, I used to trade a lot of bootleg DVD-Rs with people because like I wanted to see footage of, I mean, it was mostly iStuff, I won't lie.
Yeah.
Before John Schaefer's down.
Yeah, no, but I've got a ton of Maiden DVD-Rs as well.
Like, I get that because at the time there wasn't much footage of these bands. So yeah, okay, have at it. Not have at it, like don't ruin the gig for other people, but I get it more. Whereas nowadays, there's just no point. And like, the only reason people are doing it is for internet clout.
Yeah.
It's so that they can get their little video up on YouTube, and if they're really lucky, Blabbermouth might post it on a slow news day when they're desperate for articles, which, Blabbermouth often is. But like that's it. So you'll get your likes and your clicks, and maybe if you put some ad revenue on your YouTube video, you'll get 20 pence. I don't know. But
that's the thing.
It's just pointless. And it just ruins the experience.
It does, yeah. But in a way, like if you're going to see Taylor Swift, I kind of get it. Like I sort of think for that generation, that's kind of a lot of the point of it.
I feel like someone going to a Taylor Swift gig probably wouldn't be filming entire songs, though.
Maybe. I don't know. It seems like
the whole thing
of the footage I see from stuff like that is a lot of people who just... It's not even that they're filming songs, maybe, but they're kind of just filming themselves and their mates, and then the artist. The phone sort of stays up the whole time. Just,
I get filming a couple of clips, and like putting that on your Instagram. I get like selfies at a gig. I can understand that, and I can get taking a few photos. So you have all the mementos possible, basically.
Yeah.
But filming entire things, entire songs, entire sections is just so stupid.
And yeah,
that's as erudite about it as I can be.
And the way Maiden phrased it, it's like Maiden, it's just like, hi everyone, this is just an appeal for like good manners and common sense.
Yeah.
Is that so unreasonable? And so many of the comments underneath are from people going, if I'm paying 100 quid for my ticket, I'm going on my phone as much as I like. And I just think, this is why ghosts have to go to like, because unfortunately there are some awful people in the world who just lack both common sense or good manners. I sound like such an old man now, but it's just true, isn't it? Like, experience tells me that there are people who just flagrantly ignore it because they have that entitled sort of, well, I've paid my money, and if I want to stand here with my phone in the air, I couldn't care less the fact that I'm blocking everyone else's view and just sort of killing the vibe of the whole thing.
Yeah,
but
I think there's like three things going on. And we'll move off this topic.
Yeah, so it's got a bit.
But firstly, there's that sense of entitlement that you mentioned, that I've paid so and so amount of money for this gig. I should be able to do with this gig whatever I want. And I think a lot of the people who have that mindset, a lot of them might be fans, but a lot of them are also people who happen to have enough disposable income that they go to big gigs as much as they want to, and don't really care about the experience. Then the second thing is, as part of not caring about the experience, they don't care if they ruin that experience for other people. Yeah. So I, as a very short man, or like a just below average height man, maybe not very short.
Don't do yourself down, Sam.
I'm not a tall guy, right? Like I struggle to see at gigs in a standing area. I'm 5'7", all right? There we go.
Let the record say.
Let the record show. Anyway, so as someone of below average height, I can often struggle to see things at gigs in a standing section, particularly if there's a lot of tall people. But what makes that worse is a sea of people holding up their phones for 5+ minutes at a time, and often directly in my line of sight. So that really sucks, and that ruins... Obviously, it doesn't ruin the entire gig for me, but it makes things demonstrably worse. Yeah. And then the third thing is just what are you going to do with that footage? Yeah. Like, realistically, you might upload it online, get some internet clout, whatever, but you're not going to go back and watch that footage and be like, I am so glad that I filmed 7 minutes of Iron Maiden playing Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and was completely not present in the moment at the gig and ruined my experience of that gig by just standing there holding up a phone. Yeah. Like, you take yourself out of the moment, and that's why I can kind of get behind what Ghost were doing to some extent. Like, I think there's some practicality stuff that I don't agree with, but I think broadly the ethos of you should be present in things you want to enjoy is a good mindset. I just sort of think that, and again, but the sad thing is the genie's out of the bottle, but I sort of feel
the
internet was a mistake. Yeah. Burn it all down.
but it should be one of those things that, like you said, it shouldn't need to be enforced because it should be culturally unacceptable, right? Yeah. Like smoking in a theatre. You know, like, well, actually, okay, that's illegal, fine. But you know what I mean? It should be like a sort of someone who pushes in at a bar, right? And you think, what a jerk. Like, most people don't do it because nobody wants to think they're a jerk. And it's like phones, or, you know, at festivals when people would get on someone's shoulders to watch a gig. Yeah. And then... Or they have giant obnoxious flags. Yeah, but then 30 seconds later, like a download, they'd just be pelted with beer and would get down. Maybe we should just bring that back to phones. Just start throwing stuff at people again. Okay, so you have our permission that if you see someone filming a Maiden gig, throw your beer including me. Although, if it's me, I will take the punishment.
To be fair, like, I don't know, I'm going to assume £9 a pint. Maybe don't throw your beer.
Yeah, that's...
Bring some items with you that you wish to dispose of. Obviously, I don't mean this. Please don't sue us.
No, we're not inciting violence at the Maiden.
This is a joke with a heavy dose of irony.
Yes, we strongly encourage people to adhere to the guidelines set by Iron Maiden's management.
Bring back public shaming.
Bring back public shaming. Which is what Rod kind of did in that follow-up post. Yeah. Where he was just like, and you people who did film loads of it, oh, you tossers.
Very much a teacher with a wagging.
Yeah. Like, oh, Maiden doesn't like you.
Yeah.
Should we move on to other news?
Yeah. Yeah, so we've got some good podcast news about stuff that's coming up. So the next few episodes before we go into a matter of life and death are going to be interview episodes. The next one is going to be the frontman of a band called Angron, who, if you like death metal and really gnarly vocals, it's a good listen.
And also if you like really nice people.
If you like really nice people, we had a really fun chat. I've been editing that this week, and it's just good dude.
Yeah.
It's a really fun chat about being a small band and loving Iron Maiden whilst also making horrific sounding music. And I don't mean horrific qualities.
Yeah.
I mean like horrific in terms of
Yeah.
gurgly vocals and sick riffs. And then the next interview we have coming up after that, and dates are TBC a little bit, is going to be with Blaze Bayley.
No, and not like a tribute to Blaze Bayley, like the actual
real in the flesh, or at least in the Zoom, Blaze Bayley. We spoke to him earlier this week. We have a specific theme to the episode, so we're mostly diving into his first solo album, Silicon Messiah, but we talked about loads of stuff, and he was a really sound guy. It was a really cool chat, and
we spoke to him
we spoke to
someone who was in Iron Maiden for about 6 years.
Yeah. We didn't speak to him for 6 years.
No,
we spoke to him for like
I could have done.
But yeah, I mean, there was lots of stuff to uncover. So yeah, look forward to those episodes. That's next in the pipeline. And then last week we had a very weird, unexpected email from, of all the places,
The Nigerian prince.
You transferred some money into my account, just for safekeeping, and it was a whole thing.
Fingers crossed, it's looking good.
My house has been repossessed. But no, from, of all places, the British Library. And it turns out the British Library are currently in the process, after getting our permission, which sounds ridiculous, are in the process of archiving the Maiden Voyages podcast as part of the British Library's National Sound Archives, which is pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, and to be honest, when you sent that email, I sort of presumed, well, they must archive everything. And then in his follow-up email, he clarified by going, no, there's tons of stuff. We can't do that.
Yep.
We're looking for specific kind of things that kind of cater to niche interests. And
what he said was they looked for things that were deep dives on artists from quote unquote knowledgeable people.
Well,
which at least one of us is that.
Not our words, Sam. The words of the
British Library.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's really cool. It's quite hilarious that, you know, you're a PhD, you've contributed lots to Welsh history.
Say a little bit,
sure.
A while ago.
I have lots of creative endeavors, writing music, whatever. But our actual only real legacy, as verified by Britain's leading cultural institution, is a podcast about Iron Maiden.
Even my PhD is not in the British Library. And I spent quite a bit more time on that than I did on this podcast, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's in the National Library of Wales, if you have an Aberystwyth.
It's not the British Library, is it?
It's not the British Library, no. No, it's not. And it's only a paper copy, so, you know, that place burns down.
Whereas this is digitally.
This is digital. This is their, So I know it's a little bit backslappy, but hey.
Yeah, I think we deserve to take a moment to soak that in.
Yeah.
You know, we're being a little bit flippant about it, but it's a huge privilege for us to be archived in that way. And it's very strange, and it's nice to know that someone cares. I mean, we have a lovely community of listeners who also clearly care. But you guys can't put us in the British Library, whereas the British Library can.
It turns out they can, yeah. So, let's blow our own trumpet, Sam. And oh, there we go. That was us blowing our metaphorical trumpets.
Maybe I'll add a trumpet sound effect.
Oh, lovely stuff. Is that pretty much takes us to the end of the news?
That is the end of the news.
Well, talking of sound effects and sting, Sam, as we transition into the Soundhouse Tapes chat, are you ready for a Be Quiz or Be Dead?
Yes, and then we've got Pedant's Corner as well.
Oh, should we do Pedant's Corner first?
Should we do that first?
Yeah, let's rewind. Pedant's Corner, then Be Quiz or Be Dead.
This is a bumper episode. We're doing all the features that we don't normally do. Got a few things for Pedant's Corner on the back of the Dance of Death episodes that recently aired. Firstly, a correction. which someone very nice pointed out to me on Instagram, and I felt like an idiot immediately because obviously I'm an idiot. But you remember in Passchendaele, I was talking about the eagle sound effect,
Yeah.
like how that's a kestrel sound effect and it's not what eagles actually sound like. Someone on Instagram made the very good point that they don't think it was meant to be an eagle sound effect. It was meant to be like a falling, whistling bomb.
Yes, but in your defense, if that's what it was meant to be, I still think they've just used an eagle sound effect to convey that idea, because it's like that. The suggestion is like absolutely makes sense.
A lot more sense than an eagle.
But actually, like a whistling bomb's like,
yeah.
We're like, it's not like, which is what's on the record.
Maybe it was a falling eagle.
A falling eagle, yeah. It's like that's the thing. I think, yeah, maybe that's what they were going for, but to me it still sounds like
someone else.
As you pointed out, a kestrel, but what the world understands as an eagle.
Oh, well, we're all idiots.
Indeed.
Then the second thing was two separate people sent this factoid in. But we talked about Nico and his drumming and then double bass stuff. So Face in the Sand is the only song Nico has ever used a double pedal on.
That fact blew my mind.
That blew my mind. And regular listener and all-around Maiden nerd Alex added that it wasn't to do with technique, but it was because of stamina. So trying to do that beat for 3 minutes straight is what necessitated having to have a double pedal rather than the complexity of the beat itself.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Which makes a lot of sense.
And also supports what we said about them recording live, right? Because actually, if you were just using the most basic recording software, you could just get
a bunch of takes,
10 seconds of Nico doing it and loop it, right?
Yeah. Or at least you would
just get a couple of bars of it and then just be like, there we go. Just like drag and drop that in. But no, clearly committed to doing the whole take.
That's what happens when you don't record to the grid,
Yeah.
And quantize everything.
But that blew my mind. I thought Nico actually saying, no, it's fine. I'll use the double bass.
Swallow my pride.
Yeah, I'll do it.
And then the only other thing for Pedant's Corner was another factoid from Alex, which was corroborating something that you said. Alex writes in that Adrian Smith does use Drop D live on Run to the Hills specifically to give that gallop a lot more charm.
Yeah. Also, I would add to that Number of the Beast as well.
Does he use it on that?
Yeah, because that's in D as well. He'll often, if you notice him play live, he'll do the guitar swap and it'll be the same guitar coming on for Number of the Beast and Run to the Hills. Yeah,
that's interesting.
So like the songs that are in D rather than E.
Yeah,
it's obviously the standard Maiden.
Makes sense.
Look at me as if I know anything about music, but
I mean, Blevins being modest, he knows quite a lot about music.
No, I don't.
Annoyingly.
But
Blevins one of those annoying people that you can just hand an instrument that he's never seen before and suddenly he can just play it quite quickly. It's really frustrating.
Well,
it's very impressive.
You've never seen me play a wind or a brass instrument, Sam. Or didgeridoo. I really tried with the didgeridoo. couldn't get nothing out of it. I sat there going...
Okay, stringed instruments piano style instruments.
Stringed instruments, thank you. I'll take that compliment.
I'll put you in front of a xylophone. I'm curious. Let's see what happens.
Although I do have...
Oh, actually, I have a grade 6 in xylophone.
No, I do actually have like a grade 5 in tambourine.
There we go. What?
I did... I had orchestral percussion lessons. So you kind of move around different orchestral percussion.
Okay.
And so that... One of the things I got a grade in was...
When did you do that?
The first couple of years when I was in school before I couldn't be bothered.
Wow. Okay.
It's like timpanis.
Yeah.
I have some... I can't remember what grade I have in timpani. Some timpani thing. I think I do have something in xylophone.
I've played guitar for 20 years and have no grades.
Wow. Overrated, Sam. I don't remember any of it. My tambourine skills now would be really underwhelming. I used to be a virtuoso tambourine player.
The Steve Vai of tambourines.
But can you imagine actually going to an exam just holding a tambourine with some sheet music and
The greatest respect to any percussionist. The tambourine specifically doesn't strike me as that versatile an instrument.
Well, you'd be surprised, Sam. There's like...
Okay, well, I am surprised, yeah.
I'll have to like YouTube like the world's best tambourine player and see what that guy can do with a tambourine.
I'm curious now.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, that's the end of Pedant's Corner.
Should we do Because We're Dead?
Yeah, bring it on.
And of course, it's going to be a Soundhouse Tapes themed quiz with some top quality questions, if I don't say so myself.
Great.
Question number 1. The Soundhouse Tapes is one of the most sought after collectibles in the Iron Maiden discography.
Yeah.
As of June 2025, what is the median price an original sells for Discogs? Just to clarify, I'm not interested in the mode or the mean, only the median price.
That's because Discogs only puts the median.
Yeah.
You take whatever stat they'd give you. I'm going to say it is £820.
I think I should give you a point for that because the median apparently is 753.
Oh, I was about to say 750. It's like, no, it's got to be over 800.
Well, I think that's almost uncanny, to be fair. Like within 100, that's pretty good.
I'm taking that point.
Yeah, point for that, sure. You might actually know this. The original release of the Soundhouse Tapes was limited to how many copies?
Is it 5,000?
It is.
Yeah.
2 points.
Someone else has been on Wikipedia today.
Wow. I'm going to up the ante now.
Uh-oh.
The Soundhouse Tapes is one of a few Maiden releases to feature drummer Doug Sampson.
Yeah.
Can you name any others?
Releases with Doug Sampson?
Yeah, of Doug Sampson. Recordings. Officially released recordings. There are, by my count, although I'm waiting for the Pedant's Corners to come in,
Yeah.
I counted 3 as well as the Soundhouse Tapes. So there's 4 in total, and there's 3 other recordings that feature Doug Sampson on drums.
Does the 4 LP version of Best of the Beast with the Soundhouse Tapes and the song missing from the Soundhouse Tapes, Strange World,
I'm
count?
counting that just as the Soundhouse Tapes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's bullshit. Okay, it's going to be a B-side on a single,
Yeah.
probably around the first album.
Yeah.
Is it going to be, what's the song on Soundhouse Tapes? Is it going to be...
I'll give you a clue. None of the other songs he features on are actually on the Soundhouse Tapes.
Oh, okay. Okay. They're going to be like, what's that one with Ambition, Burning Ambition?
Yes, Sam.
Yeah, is it
the
that?
B-side of Running Free, Burning Ambition, features Doug Sampson.
When is that recorded then?
Well, guessing 78, 9, 79?
So okay.
Yeah, I need to do a bit of digging there because it's clearly recorded before Clive Burr joined. So
yeah, but so Clive Burr joins for the first album.
Yeah.
So
at some point they've been back into the studio.
Somewhere between Soundhouse Tapes and
that is
the first album. Yeah, they've been back in the studio with Doug Sampson.
But there's a few other songs, right, as well. So the version of Sanctuary that appears on the Metal for Mothers compilation.
Oh yeah, of course they've been back in the studio.
Features Doug Sampson. They've been
and then there's Wrathchild on Metal for Mothers, isn't there?
Yeah. Yes, presumably Doug Sampson's on that.
That's got to be Doug Sampson as well then.
I didn't think of that.
So it's got to be that session or those sessions.
But then also there's a version of Running Free that appears on the first versions of a compilation called Axe Attack. And it wasn't the version that was meant to be on there. It was meant to be the kind of version we know.
Yeah.
But for some reason, they ended up with this early version that features Doug Sampson on drums.
Oh, interesting.
So clearly there is a studio session with some of those early singles that ended up on the compilations.
That's interesting.
Yeah, pretty good showing. That's 3 out of 3, Sam.
I got 3 out of 3.
That first time
has never happened. It has taken, I don't know how many episodes we're in, like 35 episodes or something. Well,
pretty good.
That is my tribute to 50 years of Iron Maiden. Is I got the questions right.
All the learning is finally paying off.
Yeah. Well, speaking of learning, do you want to tell us about the history of the Soundhouse Tapes? Which obviously we've touched on a bit before, but let's remind ourselves.
Yeah, there's a little bit C episode 1, but I have been doing a bit more digging and I've unearthed some new facts, Sam.
Ooh, I've also got some facts that you've probably unearthed as well. So
let's see if they're the same facts. So, winter 1978, Iron Maiden go to Spacewood Studios, which is a studio in Cambridge, to record what they think is, it's a demo, right? So They choose the studio Spaceward because apparently Steve Harris has heard a demo by a band called V1, which featured Dennis Wilcox, the previous Iron Maiden singer, who was the guy, I think, who loved Kiss and had the sword and the makeup. But he heard this V1 demo recorded at Spaceward, and Steve goes, oh, this actually sounds really good. So despite it would be much more convenient to record in London, traipses everyone out to Cambridge, and they record this demo at Spaceward. Now, there are 4 people in Iron Maiden at this time. Okay.
Or is there?
Or is this where we're going with this? Yeah. Or is there? Okay. Enter Paul Cairns.
Yeah.
Right. So the internet is awash with rumours, or more than rumours, I'd say, some quite substantial. We'll get into the evidence. But the version from the Maiden camp is officially there are 4 people on the Soundhouse tapes, right? The first Maiden demo. So it's Murray, Doug Sampson on drums, Steve Harris bass, Paul Dion on vocals.
4 people recording these quite live sound recordings with dual guitars.
Okay.
Interesting.
So there's a chap called Paul Cairns, who many people believe was the 5th guitarist, who is also featured on the Soundhouse tape. So he is, to be fair to him, like a footnote in Maiden's history, right? Yeah. Because he's not credited on the Soundhouse tapes. He never has been. He was not in Iron Maiden for very long. By the sounds of it, he only does a few shows.
Yeah.
But there's quite a lot of evidence to suggest that he does, in fact, play on Maiden's first studio recording. So evidence 1...
Is evidence 1 the photo of him?
Well, no, I was going to get to that. My evidence goes from less compelling to more compelling.
Okay.
Right?
Sorry, I could cut that bit out.
No, it's fine. Least compelling, I found a post on the forum by someone claiming to be Paul Cairns' brother, saying he did play on the Soundhouse tape.
Barry Cairns.
Yeah,
So,
I think
Chuckle Brothers
his name
joke
was
for you out there.
Hugo. Yeah, so that was evidence 1. I didn't message him to say, prove it.
We need someone to interview on the pod. Do you want to come on?
The brother of Paul Cairns. Evidence 2 that you alluded to, a photograph taken outside Spaceward Studios, Exhibit B, if you like, showing 5 people and a dog.
Paul Cairns' dog.
Specifically. So
which weirdly makes it more compelling.
Yeah. So the 4 people are the 4 members of Iron Maiden, and the 5th man, and is allegedly Paul Cairns. The dog is allegedly Paul Cairns' dog.
Would it be a great twist if actually the 5th member was the dog?
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
And then, like you also said, Exhibit C, we're told they only had 2 stays in the studio.
Yeah.
They basically had to record the thing live. They've said they weren't able to go and do the overdubs they wanted to. Because they didn't have the money to buy the original master tapes back. Yet there are clearly 2 guitars on the recording.
Yeah.
So that begs the question, why have Maiden just not... because for Paul Cairns, as far as I can tell, he's not gone on to have any... career in music worthy of note, right? Which isn't to say he's not... I don't really know if he's a good musician or not, right? I'm sure presumably he is. But he's not... I don't know what he's done with the rest of his life. But it would be quite nice for him to maybe just... Because he's not going to get any money from it, presumably, because he's not got any writing credits or anything like that.
He deserves the credit for having played on it.
It would just be nice to go down to the pub and go, I played in the first Maiden recording. Yeah. And people's not going... Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why are you not on the...
Let me Google it. Yeah, no.
I was reading something from Steve Loopy Newhouse, who was one of the first roadies for Iron Maiden, so from 78 to 84. And he was at those Soundhouse Tapes recording sessions. And he wrote an article, I think it was for Metal Talk. He had like a column for a bit where he was saying, like, he was talking about those sessions and he was talking about the recording process. And then he kind of goes through the whole anecdote of the thing. And then he kind of ends up with, now, notice I haven't mentioned Paul Cairns all the way through the recording process. The main reason being, I simply don't remember him being there. If he was there, then I've blocked him out of the whole situation for some reason. I even spoke to Doug Sampson about this recently, and he couldn't remember Paul Cairns being there at all. So that's 2 of us out of a few people. But of course, to get the rest of this bit made me last. Of course, to get the rest of the band's comments on this issue, you'd have to be able to get in touch with them first. podcast, and for the best part of 20 years, I've tried and can't. Oh, okay. But yeah, so there's this weird thing of like a few people who were there don't remember Paul Cairns being there. But this article kind of ends with a few, like Loopy, to his credit, is kind of saying there's a few accounts that seem to imply that he was there. And then he talks about that photo. Like, what haunts me most is a picture in this book. There's the band, including Paul Cairns on page 143. So maybe he was there. And then, like, the ending bit of this article is great. It's like, in which case, why did he never work for the band again? And more importantly, why was he never credited on the Soundhouse tapes? Over to you, Mr. Harris.
Yeah.
4 exclamation marks.
What do you have to say for yourself, Mr. Harris?
There's something weird going on here, right?
Yeah. There is something odd going on. I don't think it's right, but I guess the reason he was left off is that people tend to forget that they recorded this in the very end of 78, and it doesn't come out till the end of 79. So by which point, Paul Cairns is just a distant memory.
Yeah.
And they probably can't really be bothered, people buying their first release, looking at the back and going, oh, Maiden are a 5-piece with 2 guitar players. Yeah. By which point they've already got a deal with EMI and Dennis Stratton's in the band.
They'll hear the music. Like, if anything, it would make more sense to me if they had just said Dennis Stratton was on it. And like, if like they put Dennis Stratton in the pictures and just credited him as a member of Iron Maiden.
But I guess there'd be enough people in the know perhaps for them to kind of go, well, that wasn't, we know Dennis. You know, we remember when you were playing live of... Because that second guitar slot, until Dennis came along, until Adrian came along, really, it was always a bit of a movable feast of just people coming and going, and you know, people like Paul Cairns who were there for like a month and then disappeared into the ether. So it probably just for the sake of simplifying the narrative.
Yeah, I get it.
They left.
I hope they at least, like, I don't know, paid him off or acknowledged it privately or something. Yeah. Right?
I just think it's funny how even the people who seem quite sympathetic to him can't remember him being there. Paul Cairns, like, I played him. Like,
what was that? There's 2 guitars.
I recorded.
There were no overdubs.
For God's sake. Am I that invisible? So yeah, the Paul Cairns issue aside, they record the demo. So initially they pay £200 for 2 days in the studio. Famously, in sort of Maiden lore, they record on the 30th and the 31st of December 1978 because the studio is considerably cheaper at a time of year when it's New Year's Eve, so nobody else particularly wants to spend 2 days recording in the studio. And they lay down...
Just 1 second, just to add some extra context. So £200 in 1978 amounts to £1,466 in 2025 money.
Yeah, so for a bunch of working class lads, even that's not cheap. Right?
Yeah, it's pretty punchy.
You know, when you think of how easily available recording is now.
Yeah.
To record stuff to a pretty high standard, to fork out over £1,000.
$1,500 basically.
Yeah. It's not like an insignificant amount of money, but it also reminds you how much harder it was just to get music down on, like on tape, on vinyl back then.
Absolutely.
Just getting anything recorded in itself is quite an achievement, and most bands presumably don't even get to the point of having a demo. And
with the greatest respect, this is not the highest quality recording out there. This is for like quite a basic, short session recording.
Well, that's it. Yeah, it's literally 2 days in the studio, right? Yeah. It's not like they had a week even. It's like what, 100 quid a day. So they're looking at, what's that, about 600 quid a day, something, about 500 a day.
Yeah, it'd be like £720, £730 in today's money.
Yeah, in today's money. Wow, imagine owning a studio back then. That's the cheap rate.
Yeah.
Imagine when you get, like, I don't know, sort of Deep Purple saying, we need the studio for 2 months. Like,
although, to be fair, again, according to this article from Loopy, some of them did get to crash at the studio overnight. So
yeah, well, there's the other story,
and also and Paul Di'Anno pulled.
Yeah, pulled a local nurse who invited all the band.
I think so. According to Loopy, I think only 2 people other than Paul Di'Anno slept at the nurse's house.
So is that? Well, I presume Steve is one of them.
I think it's Murray and yeah, maybe it's Steve.
So, poor Doug Sampson.
Yeah.
No wonder he's kicked out. No wonder he's always getting colds and complains about how hard touring life is, that he ends up being kicked out of the band.
And then the two roadies, I think, either sleep in the studio or sleep in the van.
Yeah, because
Rock and roll.
Yeah, because technically it's a self-produced release, right? Although there are two engineers credited.
Yeah.
Who I can't really seem to find much about. So they will enter and leave the story there. Top work engineers. I presume they were just employed by the studio.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So they lay down 4 tracks over 2 days. So we get Iron Maiden, Prowler, Invasion, and Strange World. And again, the other part of the story is they plan to return to the studio because they want to properly mix it and they want to add overdubs. But the studio says, well, if you want to do that, it's going to be extra 50 quid. They show up a week later, so they start in 1979, and they say, right, we finally got the 50 quid, which they didn't have at the time, by which point the studio says, we're too late, we've wiped the master tapes.
Yeah.
So what Maiden are left with is the basic recording, presumably they walked away with.
Yeah.
On New Year's Eve 1978. But it's also worth pointing out, when Maiden record this, it's never intended as a commercial release.
Right.
So they're recording a demo that they hope is going to help them get more gigs.
Okay.
So
okay.
they think,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
going to have a cassette, we can hand this around to promoters. We're struggling to get gigs, particularly outside of like these few core, the Cart and Horses and these
Ruskin.
the Ruskin, like these sort of residencies we have in London.
Yeah.
We want to tour more. Having a tape to send to promoters is going to help us. Now, it does help them, and in a way that they probably couldn't have even really imagined, because he's back in the Maiden story, Sam. One of the people who gets the tape is DJ Neil Kay.
Yeah.
The resident DJ, I'm going to say it in full because I love it. He's the resident DJ at the Bandwagon Heavy Metal Soundhouse Club.
Nice.
The catchily named Bandwagon Heavy Metal Soundhouse Club.
I'm sure we addressed this at the time, but presumably that's where Soundhouse Tapes, the name.
It is indeed, yeah, and it's not named after the studio, which is as we ascertained.
The Space Word Tapes.
The Space Word Tapes. Space Word sounds like a Hawkwind album. The Space Word Tapes. But yeah, so and Neil Kay, who apparently this time is like the guru of British heavy metal in the late 70s.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, he was clearly quite like I was a little dismissive of him, but he was clearly quite a big tastemaker.
Yeah.
And like had a very pivotal role in Wobham stuff.
And doesn't he want everyone to know it?
Yeah.
Sorry, Neil.
Well, that's him never being interviewed on the podcast.
I was about to say he's welcome to come on. He'd probably be good fun to chat to. But yeah, and he plays it at his club night. Not going to keep saying the full name every time. And the punters really like it.
Yeah.
They keep requesting, Prowler, Iron Maiden. Now, that in itself is great PR for the band, and they get invited to play down at the club. But it then gets an extra lease of life because Sounds magazine, then one of the main music publications in the UK, and also one of the few music publications pre-Kerrang that really cares about hard rock heavy metal.
Well, I mean, like, it is the precursor to Kerrang, right?
It is, yeah, exactly, because you've got Jeff Barton working there. And,
Malcolm Dome and...
Yeah, a lot of the crowd you go on to found Kerrang, basically. But they publish a chart, a heavy metal chart, based on requests at the Soundhouse Club.
Yes, okay.
So Iron Maiden then gets its way into print in the National Music Press, even charting higher. You'll have to dig out some of there are photos of it online, but where you see, like Russia number 9 and Iron Maiden are number 4, right? And this is an unsigned band,
An unsigned band with a release that is not commercially available
yes.
at this point. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah.
Like, people are only hearing this at the Soundhouse Bandwagon Extravaganza Jamboree. and even then it's popular enough there that it's climbing up those charts.
Yeah, and they have to wait a long time until they can actually own a copy as well. But before we get there, the other person who gets a copy of the Soundhouse tapes is Rod Smallwood.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, and, go back to it. We don't need to go through that whole story again, but...
Let's not rehash the entire first episode.
Well, we're almost there. So basically, this opens a lot of doors for Maiden. And as you pointed out, it's not commercially available fans really want to buy it. So as a result, Maiden, at some point in 1979, decide to go, well, we should just put this thing out, right?
Yeah.
And by this point, they've already got the deal VMI.
Okay.
So they know they'll be going into the studio to record a full-length debut album. But as a little teaser, they go, well, let's just stick this thing out there. So
Do they put this out independently?
independently, yeah. So it comes out on Rock Hard Records, which is a bit of a misnomer because it's
neither rock nor hard.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, but it's kind of like a made-up company as well. Like
Okay.
it's independently released, right?
Yeah.
Rock Hard Records is just a vehicle for the Soundhouse Tapes.
Yeah, okay, that makes
That's
sense.
it.
But that's what lots of independent releases do.
Yeah.
They make up a record company.
Yeah, exactly.
Lord knows I've done it.
Yeah. Gives it a little air of legitimacy. So
Well, if your record company is called Dangerous Cactus Records, which mine is.
you want to make sure that's registered at Company's House, Sam?
Do I?
Yeah.
That implies we sell anything.
Yeah. Well, Iron Maiden do sell some things, Sam, because
Damn them.
strictly limited to 5,000 copies through mail order only, and the 5,000 copies fly out. And did mention this in the first episode, but to the point where such is the demand that people are walking into the big music retail chains like H&V Virgin. They're asking for, why haven't you got this record?
Yeah.
And they end up basically calling Rod and going, look, can you send us 20,000 copies of this? We want to stock it, yeah. But the band take the decision that, no, we're not going to cash in. We want...
Hold out for the album.
Hold out for the album, yeah. And in a way...
I think that makes a lot of sense.
It does. It's very good PR because
It builds up the hype.
scarcity. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got the scarcity stuff going on and it builds up hype and word of mouth. And then also the album sounds a lot better.
Well, exactly right. And it helps build up this mythical, legendary sort
And so the commercial version comes out of Soundhouse Tapes is end of 79 years.
Yeah, November 79. So
And then the first record is some point in 80.
some point in 80, yeah. So they don't have to wait all that long. But it's also interesting to bear in mind that by the time it gets any kind of release, it's already almost a year old.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hardly hot off the press. But we'll talk about the tracks in just a second. But you always think you have to bear that in mind. You're not talking, because it's easy to look at it and think, well, okay, it's 1979 and WOM's starting. But it's not. It's 1978, right? It's before the
I think
phrase WOM was
stylistically
coined.
that comes through in the performance on the Soundhouse Tapes. That year is integral to a shift in Maiden sound, even if it's the same basic songs.
Definitely. And so the final thing I was going to say, just by the way of history come legacy, is that initial run of 5,000 pressings, as we mentioned in Be Chris Will Be Dead, is this kind of one of the most collectible things, helped by the fact it's never had a proper reissue, other than a couple. Okay, so there's two instances. So the vinyl, the 4 LP vinyl version of Best of the Beast,
Which I already spoiled for you.
which that's all right, but it features the Roundhouse tapes with Strange Days. What do I always call it? Strange Days. It's not the Doors song. Strange World.
Well, yeah, just before you explain that, I guess one thing we haven't actually mentioned is the Soundhouse Tapes that comes out is 3 songs.
It is,
as
good
opposed to
point.
the 4 that were recorded.
Yeah.
So Strange World gets left off. Is there any information as to why?
Only the band weren't happy with the quality of the recording of that song.
Oh, okay.
That's the truth.
So does that not resurface until the Best of the Beast 4 LP version?
Good question, which I do not know the answer to.
If you know at home, you can contact us
You could
on
be-
Instagram via
Be the
@MaidenPod.
star of Pedant's Corner.
You could.
If you answer that question for us.
You could drop us an email, maidenvoyagerspod@gmail.com.
My guess is there's probably a bootleg tape has been knocking around. But I imagine for most people.
Yes, I mean the first official release.
Oh, the first official release, I would quite confidently say, that's the first official release of Strange World.
Okay.
And it does get a very limited official CD release in the early 2000s, right?
Oh.
Limited to 666 copies on CD.
Yeah.
This might have just been in North America, but when the band did that reissue series, the Maiden albums that we ended up buying first time round, those ones that were digitally, whatever they said, You know, those early 2000s.
The ones that have those like very of the time electronic press kit style things.
You can put it into your computer and
it's a CD-ROM.
There might be
here is
wallpaper.
A WMV of a video in, it would have been like 240p.
It's the future, folks.
Yeah.
Well, it was for a tiny bit of time. But basically, I don't know how they administered this, but if you could demonstrate that you'd bought all of those reissues, there was a limited edition run of 666 copies of the Soundhouse tapes on CD.
Wow.
That you could then send off for kind of, I think it was actually $6.66
nice.
In America, and the first 666 people got them.
I mean, that is extremely cool.
That is very cool, yeah.
I do think, maybe this will change, I do think it's like that's cool, and I get the collectability of that, but I think they should just reissue it at this point, like just as like a nice little collectible thing, but one that you can get pretty easily.
Well, we're speaking on the day where Metallica have just done another of their reissues for Load. Yeah. It's a 16 CD set.
I don't want that, to be clear.
I do, Maiden, right?
I do not want a 16 CD set of Load or of any release ever, to be honest. I own a 4 CD set of Love by The Cult, and that is at least 2.5 CDs too many.
Well, I mean, at least, yeah, there's a good case to be made. Well, I can't help but feel that Maiden are just holding off until they retire. And then there will be a deluge. I'm hoping, because they'll need some consolation.
I hope they open the vault.
Yeah, exactly, because there's a ton of stuff in the bloody vault, right? So,
I mean, it's quite interesting you brought up Metallica, actually, because Metallica are quite good at opening their vault and have been doing it for their remasters. But the only thing they haven't ever reissued is No Life Till Ever.
Yeah, No Life Till Ever. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what it's called, right? No Life
Till
Ever. And I mean, the reasoning for that is hilarious. It's because of a credits dispute between Lars and Dave Mustaine.
Yeah.
Which, from Dave Mustaine's account, is Lars wants credit on songs that he doesn't deserve credit on. Basically, where they should just be Mustaine Hetfield credits. But to be honest, like if I was Dave Mustaine, which obviously I'm not a super successful, very talented guitarist with a chip on his shoulder. I just have the chip on my shoulder. I would just kind of be like, well, at this point, it'd just be nice to get it out there with my name on it. And Lars has kind of driven the entire band the whole time, so screw it. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. And also, it's going to be a nice payday for Mustaine, right?
He's still going to make bank from it.
Yeah, he's just such a petty man.
I mean, I sort of admire him sort of really standing his ground, but also he's not a dude who picks his battles. No. Instead, he just takes every possible battle. And like this, all this happened after the big 4 shows in like the 2010s. There was lots of reconciliation. There was even Mustaine giving interviews saying, yeah, me and Hetfield discussed doing some music together sometime. And all of that got derailed by this dispute around No Life Till Ever being reissued. And ultimately, who loses the most? I mean, yeah, sure, Mustaine loses a bit, and Metallica and their shareholders lose a bunch of money, but it's the fans who lose.
Yeah.
Like, to get a nice remastered version of No Life Till Ever would have been super cool.
Yeah.
And it'd be super cool for us to get it for Soundhouse Tapes. So please, Rod, open the vault.
Maybe it's Paul Cairns who's the real star in the works here. Maybe it's Paul Cairns who's blocking it. I mean, like, until I'm credited, I am not signing off on anything. Yeah. Until you credit me and give me £10 million. He's the real spanner in the works.
I think we've cracked it.
Yeah.
Mystery solved. That's why it's only available as a limited edition promo.
Exactly right. It all makes sense.
Then I guess it was on Best of the Beast, so...
Yeah. But the theory doesn't quite hold water if you probe it too deeply.
Maybe Dave Mustaine got involved.
Yeah. Maybe I was like, no, actually, I wrote Prowler.
I was 10, but I wrote it.
Speaking, well, not quite of Prowler yet, but... We've only got 3 songs to talk about, Sam. Well, we could probably chuck in Strange World at the end there as well.
We could talk about all 4 of them.
Well, let's go straight in with the first of the 3 canonical tracks, and then the fourth
non-canon track.
non-canon track. But Iron Maiden, track 1.
I should say, because I'm such like a manga and comic book nerd, when you talk about like canon and non-canon, it just makes me think like, well, this is an unofficial song, you know, this didn't happen, this was retconned out. Like, this song never existed. But that's not what you mean.
No, that's not what I mean, Sam.
So yeah, first song, Iron Maiden. This is weird. I can't believe how slow it is. That's the thing that sticks out to me the most. It is, because I listened to it, and then I listened back to the Iron Maiden on the first record, and it feels on the Soundhouse tapes almost anemic. And so that's quite a adjustment. And then stylistically, and I can't quite put my finger on this, on what this is, but it sounds just less metal. And it's not just the speed. It's something to do with guitar tones being less jagged sounding. And part of it is the speed. When you get into the chorus feeling so much slower, makes the whole thing feel, perhaps not that surprisingly, much more like Deep Purple than it does what Maiden would become. It's weird how much just a reduction in BPM and a slightly different guitar tone changes it, because as far as I can tell, arrangement, riffs, pretty much identical.
Yeah.
There's just a different vibe.
I think the drums have a lot to do with it as well, though. I think Doug Sampson is a much more of a sort of drummer in the 70s hard rock mold, like a very competent player, but plays with a sort of, I was going to say a looseness and a swing, but Clive Burr's got a string, but it's less phonetic.
Yeah.
It's
There's more power to Burr's delivery.
Yeah, and also Burr is...
like metallic precision.
Yeah, exactly.
Power.
When he wants to, he can really, kind of get that metallic precision thing going. Sampson is more of a... Yeah, almost like early Judas Priest, where it's a bit more kind of...
Yeah, that's a good analog.
There's a slightly swingy
Priest.
kind of vibe to it. What's interesting is when the riff kicks in the first time, I presume it's just Murray, you're like, oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
But then the tempo really slows down.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're like, okay, here we go. And then the rest of the band comes in. It's like, and you're like, why did you just slow down? Like, Dave Murray was playing it at the speed that I know the song at. And
just follow Dave's pace.
Now you guys have come in. And it's just got a lot slower for no obvious reason. But the chorus is interesting because, it's almost kind of more melodic.
Well, the weird...
Like Paul's vocals are more melodic, I think.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well. It's more like, oh, well, wherever. You know, it's like he's kind of... It showcases Paul's voice really well in a strange way. Cause...
No, absolutely. I agree with that. I think that... I remember the first time I had heard the song Iron Maiden, and, like, to my shame, it wasn't until the early days DVD came out, because I got into Maiden through Bruce stuff, and I just hadn't been back to the first album. And I remember hearing the song and the chorus and thinking, that's like, I mean, I wouldn't have called it this at the time, but like, that is a very AOR chorus for Iron Maiden. Yeah. Like, there's something much more, I don't know, like REO Speedwagon about it than most of
were the lyrics, watch the blood flow, let it shed.
Were the lyrics like much more about like holding your baby? And I mean, lover rather than small child.
I mean, but of course, also hold your baby.
Well, don't drop your baby.
Parenting 101, guys. Yeah.
God.
Hold on to that thing.
Who made you a parent? But no, like, that chorus always stuck out to me as like quite un-Iron Maiden-y in many ways. And then listening to the Soundhouse tapes the other day, I got that feeling again of like, ooh, this is really incongruent.
Well, it's even more so in the Soundhouse tapes, isn't it?
Yeah, because like you say, it's slowed down. Paul's voice is much less rough. It just feels like a 70s rock thing.
And also, how many bands before Iron Maiden were were name checking themselves in songs.
Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath.
Yeah, but the chorus of Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath isn't Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath.
It's Sabbath. It's black.
It's like, I know it's called Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath.
What is this Sabbath? That's black before
But
me.
actually, are the words Black Sabbath even in the song Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath? I'm not convinced they are they?
No, I don't.
You know, so it's actually having a song where the chorus is just Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
But of course, then they're all doing it.
Yeah, I mean,
Manowar, Angel Witch, you know, they all.
I was about to say this lays the groundwork for Angel Witch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Red Angel Witch.
Manowar.
Yeah.
Born to live. But can't resist getting a bit of Manowar on the pod, Sam.
Please resist.
Got to do it.
Just for everyone at home who's been sitting on tenterhooks whilst we still remember, are you going to see Manowar this year?
I still haven't bought my ticket, Sam.
How many weeks out from the gig are we? As of recording, like 4?
It's in July, yeah. I mean, clearly it's not selling very well. Targeted ads on Ticketmaster. I'm desperately hoping, but they won't because it's Manowar and
they're not going to reduce the price.
They're not going to reduce the price, no. I've thought about a way to do it that, sorry, nobody cares, but I'm going to get
kind of care.
Well, okay. If I do go, I'm not going to stay the night now because it's a Saturday in London.
Yeah,
there's just nowhere around Brixton that won't
get a coach back after the gig.
Get a coach back after the gig.
Get back into Cardiff about 4 a.m.
Yeah,
I've done that.
So that if it does happen, and then I can say, well, the ticket is obscenely expensive,
but you're not paying for accommodation.
This is the last thing I'll say about it. Yeah, but I'm not paying for accommodation. One of my favourite comments underneath that targeted ad was someone who left a comment like, Manowar kind of coming to London, buy your ticket now, Ticketmaster site, and all the comments like, this is too expensive, this is absurd, who they think they are. And there's one person just commented, wimps, posers, brackets, and the poor and financially illiterate leave the hall. It's one of them. Sometimes you think the internet's a cesspit and you come across something like that and I go, nah, it's all right, the internet actually, this is
worth it just for that.
I want that on a t-shirt. So I can wear it to the gig. Whips and posters, brackets, and the poor and financially illiterate.
Anyway, back to Iron Maiden.
Back to Iron Maiden. So, yeah, but I guess it seems, compared to the version we're used to, it does seem almost more sedate. But again, I always think you have to go, yeah, but this is 1978, right? This isn't 79. And as you were saying, a lot changes.
Yeah. That
from
year
78
is pretty...
to 79. And then even more so, arguably 79 to 80.
I would say, just as a random thing, like you mentioned Paul sounds great on it.
Yeah.
And I think this entire EP is actually really good showcase for Paul's voice. It's cleaner but still powerful. It's very melodic, and the various songs show him in different characters. I think he's sounding really good on it. What I don't think sounds as good is the guitar tone.
Yes,
sounds pretty awful to me.
You know what's weird?
Awful might be a stretch, but I'm not a fan.
Again, this is like techie nerdy guitar point that maybe someone can correct me on, but I'm used to Dave Murray using the neck pickup a lot, right? Which is the kind of more mellifluous, smoother, bluesier tone that you expect from Dave Murray. Whereas actually I think he's using... Have I confused the neck and bridge? Maybe. But it seems like he's using the neck pickup. No, it's...
I should know this, but I know exactly what you mean. There's the pickup on the left of the switch.
Yeah.
That I think of...
Which is the one closest to the fretboard.
Yeah, which I think of the Sweet Child of Mine tone.
Which is also like Dave Murray's...
Yeah.
He spends a lot of time there.
And then on the right switch, you have jagged metal.
Trebly tone, yeah. Which seems to be what Dave is using here.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird because it's not the tone I associate with his guitar. Because it does sound very trebly and jaggedy. And you're like, oh no, I'm used to Dave kind of having that fuller...
It just sounds... Yeah, you're right, it is jagged, but it also just sounds not great.
No.
Something about it sounds really off to me.
Yeah, and again, it's... I presume Maiden are just, at this point, it's just like a Strat plugged into some kind of stack and hope for the best, right? And like all analog gear, you've only got 2 good days. They probably can't really experiment with tones. They've got to record 4 songs.
It's not like
it's just plug in and play.
Everyone recording music nowadays who has, amp modelers and various microphones and can just play around with tones, and then you could just record the raw DI input and then change the tone afterwards and change the amp afterwards and blah, blah, blah. And you can reamp stuff and you could do all this on a limited budget. No, it's the good old days where you can't do anything and it'll sound awful.
Carry big, bulky equipment that sounds terrible.
You have to sleep on the floor of Paul Di'Anno's Conquest.
What a life. But yeah, no, as much as Steve Harris still likes to moan about his perception of the quality of the recording of the debut album.
Oh, it's like night and day.
The tones and stuff are way better. Yeah, way better. Should we talk about track 2 then? Which is interesting, is the only one of the 4 songs we're going to discuss that doesn't find its way onto the debut album.
But does reappear as a B-side on Women in Uniform?
Yes, I believe you're right. Yeah, which is Invasion.
Yeah.
Weird song. We said this at the time.
Weird song, weird choice. I'm not a huge fan of the song, but...
Yeah, I'm not mad on it. It's interesting rather than good.
Yeah, and in this incarnation, it's so slow and so soft sounding compared to the B-side recording that appears later on.
Yeah.
It has no edge, and it's quite an odd song choice to showcase Iron Maiden.
Well, when you think they'd already written songs like Sanctuary, Wrathchild, they've pretty much got most of that first album in the bag already, written, songwriting wise. It's been in the set, and they go, right, we can record 4 songs. Let's record Invasion.
Yeah. I mean, the song, it should have at this point had it written on it, but the song feels to me just like classic B-side material.
Yeah. Like as clearly Maiden realised eventually.
Not good enough for an album, right? So it's surprising, like you say, they just didn't come to that realisation in time, but this is an odd choice for one of the most important demos of all time.
Yeah, but the kind of reason I like it is because it's so Nwabum. And there's so many new wave of British heavy metal bands. The quality of their entire output is basically songs like Invasion. So for that reason, it has a kind of charm for me in that sense. Yeah. But it also reminds you why Maiden were also just so much better than a lot of their peers, because there were a lot of bands churning out Invasion standard material. Yeah. But yeah, this is a weak moment for Maiden, really.
Yeah. Again, as I say, I think when it does resurface as a re-recorded B-side, I think it's a lot better.
But I also hear people say, oh yeah, and the song's later reworked into Invaders from Number the Beast. I'm like, no, it's not.
I don't think there's any commonality.
Other than the title.
Other than the first...
The lyrical themes in the title,
3, 4 letters.
Yeah.
The first 4 letters are in common, and that's it.
Yeah, no, I don't get that comparison at all, really. I mean, although Invaders is arguably also not a brilliant song.
Invaders! Pillaging!
The Norsemen are coming. What a strange chorus as well, Invasion has.
But also, in this context, like having that just quite slow is even worse.
Yeah. And then the verse that's almost like cheeky chappy is like da 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 da. It just feels sort of swingy, like sort of.
Clicking their fingers.
Yeah, it is. It's very weird.
Doing little vaudeville dances.
And when you think for a lot of people, well, I say a lot of people, but for the people in 79, that was the second Maiden song you heard. You might think, oh, this is good, Iron Maiden. And then you go, okay.
How did this end up so high on the Soundhouse bandwagon extravaganza jamboree village fate?
And at this point, you're going, well, this third song better be pretty good.
Yeah, and it is.
It is, isn't it?
It's definitely the highlight of the EP for me. Well, because, I mean, there's technically only 3 songs. But yeah, Prowler is the best sounding song on it by far. It lacks some of the edge that it would eventually have, but it also feels the most reflective of what Iron Maiden actually go on to sound like. It is the closest to a heavy metal track on the EP, I would say.
Yeah.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, you can see, I imagine for a lot of people, that's the song where you go, oh, hello, this is a bit different.
Yeah.
Because also, how many metal bands are writing riffs where the riff is like a lead guitar line in 17?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? The wow, wow.
Yeah.
Not many people doing it, right? People are still kind of doing power chords.
Yeah.
It's all, you didn't think of Purple, or it's all kind of lower down the fretboard, like a lead guitar line that's a riff. It's still kind of like, yeah, and also it's just the most menacing. It's the heavier song. Again, like all the tracks, it's slower.
Yeah.
And, you know, whether it's getting Clive Burr in, who just, I don't know, has got the chops to kind of pick up the tempo, or if it's Maiden just in 79 gigs.
I think like a year of woodshedding these songs in a live setting would naturally just make them faster.
Yeah, and also a year in which they're probably realising, oh, Christ, there's actually all these other heavy bands.
Yeah.
And there's
so
a
you
sense
start
of,
kind of like...
Yeah, there's a kind of...
building
or whatever
that
it is. Where you're like,
up a bit.
Yeah, you know, we're kind of a sense of one-upmanship there. But yeah, Prowler is the one where you go, this is the real statement.
So then you've got the fourth track that doesn't actually appear on this release, but recorded as part of the sessions, appears later on Best of the Beast and so on, Strange World. What do you think about this one?
This is the one, weirdly, since they left it off, it's probably the closest to the one we get.
That is the exact note I have written on my screen here. This is the one that feels like it changes the least.
Yes.
In its journey to final recording.
The only place where you can be, living here is not what it seems. Ship away, light in the sky.
Because it's a slow bluesy number, so it just stays
a little
slow
bit
bluesy
proggy.
number.
It's kind of got... It always feels like a bit of an anomaly on the debut album, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's... And we get this again on
Sort
Killers
of,
when you get
but then
Prodigal
like
Son.
you have stuff like Remember Tomorrow, which...
Yeah, but even Remember Tomorrow
that
kind of bites in
amps it up at some point.
down.
Yeah.
Whereas this is just basically... This could be off a kind of Wishbone Ash album from 1972.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that this is like a bad thing, but it's... Because, hey, Wishbone Ash 1972 are a great band, but... It's like there's just nothing original or innovative about this, which doesn't mean it's not a good song. Like, that's not me saying it's bad, but there's nothing. And in a way, even if it was the sound quality that made them leave it off initially, having it on there might have diluted the overall impact of the initial record.
I think it would have been wrong to leave this on.
Yeah,
just because, exactly like you say, it kind of takes what already feels like a softer version of Iron Maiden, it kind of exacerbates that even further. But I do think it's a really nice recording. What I think is best about it is actually Paul's vocals. I think it's a really nice demonstration of he could do this smooth, mellow, melodic voice with much more of a bluesy tone than... I mean, obviously, like Iron Maiden get heavier and he goes more and more into a raspy place, but actually, he had more versatility than I certainly gave him credit for when we did some of the early episodes. There's just this nice... The whole song has this cool sort of laconic vibe to it, and although it's negligibly different from what appears on the final record, I think I might prefer this version ever so slightly.
Interesting.
Just because it's got a nice groove about it.
Yeah. Oh, that is interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure I've even thought about it in those terms, but yeah, it's the one where certainly you go, I unless I'm really paying attention, you could probably play me the Roundhouse version, and I would, probably instinctively presume that was the self-titled album version.
Yeah,
they're pretty similar. Like the guitar tones and stuff are different. Yeah, I get that, but
actually, I think the guitar tones are less different here because it's soft, delayed tones and cleaner tones anyway. So yeah, it's the one that feels like less of a jump for sure.
So I guess that brings the Soundhouse Tapes to a conclusion. A sort of fascinating little moment in Maiden's, a very influential moment in Maiden's career.
I think what's really interesting about this, like all 3 or 4 songs, is how fully formed the songs are in terms of songwriting. Like the songs structurally don't change much at all. The arrangements remain similar. The riffs are pretty much identical. And yet it feels so different to what appears on Iron Maiden in 1980.
Yeah. But it's interesting, by the way, of comparison. Go back to those bootlegs from when Dennis Wilcox, the live recordings from the Dennis Wilcox era in 77. And you can see then they're almost like slower again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a gradual...
Just everything kind of keeps shifting and shifting up until 1980, where like, okay, now this is metal.
Yeah, and I wondered the extent to which... Yeah, I think it's partly, like I said, cultural and the musical climate pushing Maiden in that direction. And I also wonder, how much credit we need to give Clive Burr here as well for just like really being able to ramp up that kind of...
Although you say that, and this is not to take anything from Clive Burr, but I wonder who was the drummer for the tracks that appear on the Metal from Others compilations, because...
Well, it's Doug Sampson.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's Sanctuary and Wrathchild, and already those are sounding aggier and heavier than what you get on the Soundhouse tapes.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it, I think Clive Burr definitely takes things another step, but I think a lot of it is literally woodshedding those songs in the live setting, seeing what's going on around you, and just things keep getting faster and more intense, quite organically.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair point. So because we're doing an EP, we won't do the usual man of the match rating and ranking. Although if you want to know my man of the match, obviously Paul Cairns. Justice for Paul Cairns.
Justice for Paul Cairns.
Definitely my man of the match. So rather than go for the
my man of the match is Paul Cairns' dog.
Yeah, Paul Cairns' dog. The real, think how
real hero
life would have been. Would Maiden be here were it not for that dog?
Yeah.
But yes, let's fast forward to the as yet still unnamed feature where we say something we've been listening to this week.
I think it's going to be permanently unnamed. I think
it's the permanently unnamed feature. It's where we say some things we've been listening to this week. That's the name of the feature now.
Yes. So what have you been listening to this week?
So, I say been listening to. The first time I listened to this was walking over here to record this.
Oh, wow.
I've listened to most of it, but I've not listened to all of it yet. But I kind of have already listened to it quite a few times. So
what a weird introduction.
This is building up, isn't it? So, the Japanese black metal band, or really Psy. It is, yeah. I mean, almost like
Levin loves
Psy. Do love Psy, but to call them a black metal band is really selling them short. I mean, black metal oddballs would be a better way to describe them.
Yeah,
because it's like if Frank Zappa liked Immortal, really.
Yeah. They are a very unique black metal.
A very unique band, cool. And also a lot of like trad heavy metal in there.
Yeah,
like if you like Maiden. So the reason I say I haven't listened to this all the way through, but I'm very familiar with this album, is they've released a re-recorded version of an album that came out in about 2007, 2008, right? So the original album was called Hangman's Hymn, which is an album I'm very familiar with, but they were never quite happy with the production of that record, and I see why. The songs in it are great, but it's an odd production. So literally came out today. It's I Saw the World's End, Hangman's Hymn 2025 by Psy.
Nice.
And it's great. It's really good. Yeah. I because often bands re-recording stuff, I'm a bit like
it can go. Sometimes it can go quite well.
Sometimes it can, but then
often
sometimes
it can't.
You can go, oh, why did he do that?
Yeah.
And sometimes you can just go, why did he bother? Like it's just it's just the difference is negligible. This makes perfect sense, and is also actually. This particular version is if you think just very strange avant-garde black metal that has actually quite a lot of hooks in it as well, is for you. Give this a listen. And also I'd say that...
Pretty sold by that.
Yeah, the kind of band... Just listen to the first 3 minutes because, some things you think, I need to work at this.
Yeah.
A band like Psy, I sort of think... you'll either in the first 3 minutes go, this is bizarre and great.
Yeah.
Or you'll go, what the hell is this? Like, this is giving me a headache. And that will basically, it's only 3 minutes of your time. That's what I'm saying. 3 minutes of your time, you will know whether this is for you. And it might not be. And that makes sense because it is really strange. But also there's some, cool hooks, great riffs in there. So the re-recorded of that version of that album for 2007. I Saw the World's End, Hangman's Hymn, 2025. It's like the heavy metal loony bandwagon bin or whatever it is. Loads of catchy titles. But that's what I've been listening to, and I'll listen to the rest of it on my way home as I'm waiting for my kebab.
Nice. I'm intrigued. So Sire, one of those bands that I've always meant to check out properly, and to this day I only know one song, which is Hail Horror Hail.
Oh, great song.
Which you sent me on MSN Messenger when we were like 17 or 18, and it is permanently implanted in my brain for starting off with like what sounds like a out of tune guitar lead.
And then so like it sounds like a boogie classic rock song before.
It's like one of the weirdest things I've ever heard to this day. I'm interested, but I've just never checked them out.
That whole album isn't even on streaming services. Weirdly.
Wow. That's how you know it's good.
Well, it is, I have to sort of dig out my CD copy that apparently is worth, again, according to Discogs, it's about 40, 50 quid for a copy of Hail Horror Hail now, So maybe don't check that as your first. That's quite a big investment for your first Psy album. There is lots of other great stuff. Early, almost like epic black metal stuff. They did like a sort of strange power metal album in the middle called Gallows Hymn. It's all good. What have you been listening to, Sam?
So I have been listening to something decidedly non-metal. Have you ever heard of the band Oingo Boingo? It's a very distinctive name. Yeah,
so I've probably vaguely heard of that name. But if had you told me that, I'd have thought that was a children's soft drink.
That's Umbongo.
Very
problematic soft
have
drink.
I just heard of Umbongo? Yeah.
But so Oingo Boingo is the band that film and TV composer Danny Elfman came from and cut his teeth in that band.
Right, okay.
And so there's like, if you don't know who Danny Elfman is, which I feel like American listeners might do, but in the UK, he wrote the Simpsons theme song.
Okay.
He is the voice of Jack Skellington in The Nightmare Before Christmas and wrote most of the music in that, I believe.
Yeah.
So, like quite a big name in sort of film and TV. But his band Oingo Boingo was like somewhere between ska, new wave, punk, pop, and like just anything. And like it's like this 10-piece band with loads of multi-instrumentalists, and it is pretty wacky band. And like I'm not that into a lot of their material. There seems like some good stuff, but there's one album, Dead Man's Party, which I discovered some point last year, and I really enjoyed it then. But it's come back into circulation for me recently. It's just such a good, weird pop album that kind of strays between new wave pop with lots of 80s horns, and then occasionally like a bit gothic, and then occasionally a bit ska and jumpy. And it's just a weird, cool album. So if any of that sounds appealing, I would recommend it.
Oh, that's a great show. I have to give that a listen.
It is an odd album.
Yeah, well, as usual, I guess we'll share them on the old Instagram.
I will. And that neatly takes us on to where you can find us on social media.
Doesn't he? He knows what he's doing.
More than just a pretty face, Arblev. But if you want to keep in touch with us in between episodes, you can find us on social media. Our lead account is probably the Instagram nowadays, @MaidenPod, but we're still on X for reasons I don't fully understand, @MaidenPod.
God, X is. I just went on there the other day on my personal account, and after about 5 minutes, I was like, this is giving me a headache.
My personal account got hacked the other day.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
I managed to regain it, and I've just nuked it straight away, to be honest. Like, there's no point having it.
No.
But
I mean, having spent about 30 seconds on X, just from a personal point of view, I think that was the good call.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the Maiden Pod account on X has a nice little community of people who share cool things with us, and that's the only reason that account exists.
But come to Instagram.
But if you all want to migrate to Instagram or the Blue Sky account, that would be better. Probably the Instagram is the most active, to be honest, and it has the best content. So yeah, you can find us on those, or if you want to email us, it's maidenvoyagerspod@gmail.com. Tell us your opinions about the Soundhouse tapes.
Yeah.
Or what weird music you've listened to that's not Iron Maiden. I don't know.
And don't forget, Sam, people can also give us money.
Yeah.
We're not good enough at plugging this, but trust
No,
us.
it's true. We
give
have
us money.
We have a Ko-fi account, which you can find on basically the URL linked on any of our social media accounts will lead you to that Ko-fi. You can put a couple of quid into our fund to...
Or several hundred quid. Don't let Sam's suggestion.
No, like, keep it small, but like...
But unless you have a lot of money, in which case...
Yeah, unless
Go
you're
wild.
some wild, benevolent benefactor, sure, knock yourself out.
I'd love a
but otherwise, we'd just like to be able to buy a pint of Trooper.
Please.
That's what it really boils down to.
Yeah, that's all we want. And like, subscribe, review, because all the reviews on the various streaming platforms are really nice, aren't they?
Very nice. Yeah, we get lots of nice comments on Spotify, lots of people engaging with us.
And
It's
apparently
great.
that helps us.
Yeah.
So...
Just share this with the Iron Maiden fan in your life.
Please do. Please.
And on that desperate plea, I think it's time to say goodbye.
Indeed. Bye.
Bye.